If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. Your support helps us share more amazing, deeply personal stories that explore the complicated corners of real life. That I never imagined that years later I would still be replaying that summer in my mind, trying to understand what it truly meant. Some memories fade into soft blurs over time, but others remain vivid, sharp around the edges, impossible to ignore. This is one of those memories. My name is Melissa Carter. For most of my life, I believed I had a strong moral compass. I was the friend people trusted, the one who gave advice but never crossed boundaries. I valued loyalty above almost everything else, especially when it came to the people I loved. And there was no one I loved more fiercely, outside of my own family, than Emma. Emma and I met when we were barely teenagers. Middle school lockers, overstuffed backpacks, passing notes in class. That's where it started. From that moment on, we were inseparable. We survived math tests, first crushes, first heartbreaks, and the terrifying uncertainty of applying to colleges. We held each other through disappointments and celebrated each other's wins like they were our own. When Emma fell in love with David during her sophomore year of college, she called me at 2 a.m. whispering, "I think this is it." I could hear it in her voice. The certainty, the softness, the future unfolding. I stood beside her on her wedding day as her maid of honor, holding her bouquet when her hands trembled. Years later, when she gave birth to her son, Ethan, I was in the hospital waiting room pacing nervously like I was the one becoming a mother. When the nurse finally placed him in my arms, tiny and red and squirming, I remember thinking, this child will always be part of my life. And he was. Ethan grew up in front of me. From the shy boy with oversized glasses who hid behind his mother's legs, to the awkward teenager who mumbled his way through conversations, to the young man who slowly began to find his voice. He wasn't just Emma's son. He felt like my own in some unspoken way. I babysat him when Emma and David needed a break. I attended his soccer games, school plays, graduation ceremonies. I listened when he vented about strict teachers or confusing friendships. I watched him develop a passion for photography when he was 15. It started with a cheap digital camera and turned into something serious. He had an eye for detail. He saw beauty in places most of us overlooked. By the time he graduated from college, that passion had grown into a dream. He wanted to become a professional photographer. But dreams aren't always welcomed with applause. David wanted him to go into business. Emma wanted him to have stability. And Ethan? He wanted freedom. The summer after his graduation, he moved back home temporarily. He was trying to figure out his next step. That's when Emma called me. "Melissa," she said one afternoon, "would you mind looking over some of Ethan's creative projects? You work in publishing, you have experience. I think he respects your opinion." I agreed immediately. Why wouldn't I? I had watched that boy grow up. Supporting him felt natural. The day he came over, he arrived with a camera bag slung across his shoulder and a laptop tucked under his arm. When I opened the door, I had to pause for half a second. He wasn't a boy anymore. He had grown taller than I remembered. His posture was confident. His once awkward movements had steadied. His voice had deepened. There was something undeniably adult about him now. But in my mind he was still the child who needed help tying his cleats. We spent hours going through his portfolio. Landscapes bathed in golden light. Street photography that captured raw emotion. Portraits that told stories without words. I was genuinely impressed. He had grown taller than I remembered. His posture was confident. His once awkward movements had steadied. His voice had deepened. There was something undeniably adult about him now. But in my mind, he was still the child who needed help tying his cleats. We spent hours going through his portfolio. Landscapes bathed in golden light. Street photography that captured raw emotion. Portraits that told stories without words. I was genuinely impressed. "You have something special," I told him. His face lit up in a way that reminded me of his younger self. We talked about building a brand. About pitching to magazines. About internships in larger cities. It was productive, energizing, completely innocent. Until it wasn't. It happened in a split second. He leaned over to show me something on his laptop, an edit he wasn't sure about. In his rush, he misjudged the distance between us. His shoulder brushed against me more firmly than intended. His hand landed awkwardly where it shouldn't have. Time froze. His body stiffened. His words tripped over each other. "I'm so sorry, Melissa, I didn't." His face drained of color, then flushed deep red. In that moment, I saw pure panic. Not intent. Not desire. Panic. He pulled away instantly like he had touched fire. The air between us became unbearably thick. The kind of silence that hums in your ears. I could have reacted a dozen different ways. I could have scolded him, accused him, called Emma immediately, created a scene that would define him forever. Instead, I took a breath. I looked at him, not as a man who had crossed a line, but as a young adult stumbling through the awkward transition into maturity. "Ethan," I said calmly, "let's just reset." He blinked at me confused. "You don't need to panic. Mistakes happen. What matters is how you handle them after." His shoulders lowered slightly, though his embarrassment didn't disappear. "You'd let me try again?" he asked quietly. Not in a romantic sense. In a human sense. A plea for dignity. "Yes," I replied firmly. "Everyone deserves the chance to correct a mistake." That was the moment something shifted. Not into something inappropriate. Not into romance. But into something deeper and more complicated. He stopped seeing me solely as his mother's best friend. And I stopped seeing him solely as a child. We entered that strange in-between space, where mentorship, trust, and vulnerability overlap. We never mentioned the incident again. Not directly. But in the days that followed, our conversations grew more honest. He opened up about feeling suffocated at home. About disappointing his father. About the quiet pressure to be someone he wasn't. "Sometimes," he admitted one evening, "it feels like everyone already decided who I'm supposed to be." I listened. Truly listened. Maybe that's what made that summer so significant. Not the accidental touch. Not the awkwardness. But the space I gave him afterward. He once told me, "You didn't treat me like a criminal for messing up. Most people would've." That sentence stayed with me. Because that's when the guilt began. Not because I had done something physical. I hadn't. But because I hadn't told Emma. I had kept something from her. A secret. Small perhaps. But real. Was that betrayal? Was silence a form of infidelity? Not to a marriage, but to a friendship? I replayed that question in my mind for years. When Ethan eventually moved to New York to pursue photography, I felt proud and unsettled all at once. Proud because he had found the courage to chase his dream. Unsettled because a part of me wondered if our unspoken moment had changed him in ways I couldn't measure. He began building a career. Assisting established photographers. Traveling. Exhibiting his work. Every so often, I'd receive a postcard. A skyline at sunset. A crowded street in black and white. A handwritten note on the back. "Thank you for believing in me when I almost lost my footing." He never elaborated. He didn't need to. Emma remained blissfully unaware of that summer's tension. To her, I was simply the supportive family friend who helped her son polish his portfolio. Years passed. Then came her 50th birthday. Ethan flew in as a surprise. When he walked through the door, he looked like someone who had lived fully. Confident. Grounded. Successful. He hugged his mother tightly. The kind of hug that says, "I made it." Then he turned to me. "Hi, Melissa," he said with a soft smile. "Thank you for letting me reset back then. I wouldn't be here without that." Emma looked puzzled. "Reset?" she asked playfully. "What did I miss?" Ethan and I exchanged a glance. Years of understanding passed between us in that half-second. He laughed lightly. "Oh, just some photography projects I almost gave up on." Emma nodded, satisfied. And in that moment, I realized something profound. The secret we carried wasn't dark. It wasn't scandalous. It was human. It was about grace. About choosing guidance over punishment. About recognizing that growth often comes from uncomfortable moments. Did I betray Emma? For years, I believed I had. But standing there, watching her son thrive, I understood something different. I had protected him. I had given him room to become a better man without branding him with a mistake. And sometimes loyalty isn't about exposing every truth. Sometimes it's about protecting the fragile spaces where growth happens. That summer will always be complicated in my memory. It tested my boundaries. It forced me to question my values. It made me confront how thin the line can be between innocence and misinterpretation. But it also taught me that integrity isn't just about never stumbling. It's about how you respond when someone else does. And maybe that's why I still struggle to define that chapter of my life. It wasn't romance. It wasn't scandal. It wasn't the kind of infidelity tabloids scream about. It was quieter. It was emotional. It was the weight of holding a secret that shaped someone's future. And sometimes, the most complicated stories are the ones where nothing happened. Yet everything changed.